Hello, how are you today? Hope you're well. So in this live, as part of this series of mood issues during our cycle, I'm going to focus a little bit in on serotonin. So I've talked about serotonin a lot in different lives, but I wanted to just nut down serotonin today and talk a little bit more about it, because serotonin can be a huge issue for women during their cycle, particularly in that luteal phase, particularly during that phase when our moods can fluctuate. Blood sugar can be out, progesterone and estrogen can be out a little bit. Sometimes it's low progesterone, sometimes it's high estrogen, so different things can happen. So serotonin in the cycle helps to modulate the hormones, and it modulates through the cycle. And some women with issues such as PMS or PMDD even, which is quite severe, find they have these really horrific mood fluctuations through the cycle. And serotonin isn't just about depression. It can actually impact quite a few systems in our bodies, from our mental capacity, memory, also brain fog, that kind of thing. It can impact our bowel, so constipation is a huge sign of low serotonin, and it can also impact our pain threshold and how we perceive pain. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But generally, symptoms, as I said, they're not just depression. Symptoms can be these kind of like mental obsessions, you know, that kind of overthinking things are going around in your head again and again and again. And you might find sometimes in your cycle this is fine, and then other times in your cycle, bam, suddenly that hits and you're just mentally fatigued because you're thinking, going through things again and again and again. We've also got this kind of like compulsive behavior. Now, have you noticed that in yourself, where sometimes you'll find, and again, other times it will be that kind of compulsive, either cleaning, locking the door, or doing different things, or a little bit kind of compulsive behavior, but it's not with you all the time. It's only there certain times in your cycle. Then we've got sleep. Sleep's a biggie, and when serotonin's low, you're more likely to have those sleep fluctuations where it's really difficult to get to sleep, or you're waking in the night. But it's hard to get back to sleep because you start thinking about what the day was like, or you start thinking about problems that you've got tomorrow. So the problem with low serotonin is it's that real overthinking, thinking, ruminating. So you might think of a situation that you've got to deal with tomorrow and go over it 100 times what you're going to say to that person. You imagine you walking up to that person exactly what you're going to say. So that's also a sign of low serotonin. That's huge for women in that luteal phase. That's a biggie for them. I found that to be a really big problem, particularly the sleep disturbances. Serotonin also has a relationship with insulin and blood sugar fluctuations. So what a lot of women who have low serotonin also find that their appetite changes, and it's more that compulsive eating, that need for food. If you're stressed, if you're depressed, it's kind of the overeating where you're just eating for the sake of it. You get full in the stomach, but mentally you never feel satisfied from that food. Mentally you still feel kind of just low and like it hasn't done anything. But it's that real overeating. It could be sweet stuff, it could be savory. It's just kind of increased appetite that's trying to quell some kind of emotional state, so some kind of low state, some kind of depressed state. Low libido is a biggie, and low libido coupled with actually issues orgasming, because low serotonin does play a part in that, so that can happen. Irritability is a biggie, so a lot of women suffer from irritability. And then, as I mentioned, we've got digestive issues. So serotonin, a lot of serotonin is made in the gut. It's made in the gut from the gut bacteria, the amino acids, tryptophan. And when you've got low serotonin, constipation is huge. So think everything kind of stops and slows down. So it stops and slows down. So when the constipation, when the serotonin is low, constipation can hit. And that's why some women as well, they have fine bowel motion sometime in their cycle. And then come the luteal phase, things start to slow down, and they can go from 3, 4, 5 days without a bowel motion. These women find that when they work on their thyroid, because working your thyroid potentiates serotonin and supports the making of serotonin, so these women find that working on their thyroid not only helps their moods, but also helps their constipation as well. Bit out of breath today, chatting. And just that general feeling blur, no motivation, no joy for anything. You know, when you see kids getting excited for things, but you tend to kind of just be like, whatever. It's not finding joy in those things that you used to find joy in. And that momentum and that passion also seems to stop as well, but it comes back in other times in your cycle. So you find it drops out and then it comes back, drops out and comes back. This is why it's really difficult for female entrepreneurs sometimes who suffer so difficultly with this. It's such a difficult situation because they get the momentum going and then they hit this period in their cycle, and it could last for some 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it really has an impact on sort of work output, money coming into the business. So it's a huge burden, these kind of symptoms, particularly on women that have their own businesses. In the follicular phase, which is different from the luteal phase, we've got the follicular phase first 2 weeks and we go into the luteal phase. Serotonin can drop a lot then. Now, signs that serotonin has dropped dramatically along with hormones, so if they're all kind of dropping, except maybe estrogen can stay high, it's that fogginess. So you know that kind of like real fogginess? We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and I talked about how histamine can cause a fogginess. Low serotonin can cause a fogginess as well. So it's about being really clued into how you're feeling mentally, emotionally, so you can see the difference between what's going on. This is why for some women, anti-inflammatories can sort their symptoms out, and actually some women find that anti-inflammatories get rid of their depression, get rid of their anxiety, and also get rid of the brain fog. So it really pays just to tune in and to just see those symptoms and to just see if you can tell the difference between symptoms. But definitely that low serotonin is that severe brain fog. Now, through the cycle, and I've talked about the cycle before, you know, the hormones should drop out in the follicular phase. Then we've got testosterone, it starts to rise before ovulation. Estrogen rises in kind of a bell curve, ovulation through the luteal phase, and progesterone starts to climb nicely in the luteal phase. And then, she always likes to join me. And then they drop out when the period comes. And so what you'll find is these fluctuations not only in the hormones in your cycle, but also in thyroid hormones, also in neurotransmitters, because what's happening is these hormones are potentiating things. So we know that estrogen modulates your hormones, modulates serotonin, sorry. Estrogen modulates serotonin. So if you're finding that there are certain times in your cycle where you're feeling particularly depressed or anxious, you need to pay attention to whether you're suffering from estrogen dominance or whether your hormones are completely dropping out. Now, so if you're suffering from estrogen dominance, normally what you will find is in your luteal phase, you're suffering quite dramatically. You might suffer from anxiety or you might suffer from depression. Then the hormones drop out when your period comes in your follicular phase and you feel good. That's a huge indication of that kind of estrogen dominance. If it's flipped and your period comes and you are hit with these symptoms, you know, fatigue, fogginess, pain, irritability, depression or anxiety, that's a big sign that those hormones are dropped out, and maybe actually your estrogen levels are getting too low. And so what that's not feeding your neurotransmitters, that's not feeding your serotonin. So that's how estrogen plays a part. It kind of modulates. Whereas progesterone is more that potentiator. The more progesterone, the more it produces the serotonin. So if you're one of these ladies that suffer from low progesterone levels, you know, you might have heavy periods, or you might have a longer menstrual cycle, or maybe you're not ovulating. If you're not ovulating, definitely you're going to have these low serotonin, and then that kind of potentiates. But progesterone helps to make serotonin. So if it's low, it's going to be really difficult for you to make enough serotonin. So pay attention to those different phases in your cycle. You know, you've got the 2 weeks of the follicular, the 2 weeks of the luteal. Pay attention to how you feel, which phase do you feel best in? When are you more energized? When are you more focused? And also pay attention to ovulation. When do you ovulate? Do you ovulate early, 9-10 days? Do you not ovulate at all? Or are you a late ovulator? And pay attention to how you feel around that time. Pay attention to how you feel leading up to ovulation, because remember what I said, testosterone starts to rise at ovulation. Are you hypersexual? Do you get bad skin, bad acne? Do you get hair growth? Do you smell a little bit more? Do you get angry or agitated? Because that can actually be that sensitivity to testosterone, because testosterone can in its own way cause issues with serotonin. Also, if the estrogen's not high enough, it can suppress it. So pay attention to that. And then next we've got thyroid issues. So thyroid can fluctuate through your cycle. And estrogen can actually block or potentiate thyroid hormone. So too much estrogen, it can block it. Not enough, then we might not get enough thyroid hormone and you can feel foggy. But it's thyroid hormones that keep that serotonin going. And this is why working on your thyroid through your cycle can really support those serotonin levels. So things like selenium and zinc and iodine can help some women with really low serotonin levels. So look out for that, and look out for those low thyroid symptoms through your cycle: cold hands and feet, heart palpitations, fogginess, puffy eyes, puffy hands, all low thyroid symptoms. And you may also be affected with the low serotonin as well. So what we've got is we've got your cycle happening, we've got your hormones fluctuating, and then we've got your hormones kind of potentiating these neurotransmitters. And so we know that if there's anything going on with estrogen, kind of that excess estrogen, we're not only going to have issues with the low serotonin, but we're also going to have issues with other neurotransmitters. So if we look at GABA, for example, GABA is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, relaxes us, it helps us to sleep. You know, there's lots of GABA in dairy. Magnesium supplements these days have a lot of GABA in. So GABA tends to relax us. Now, if we're estrogen dominant, what will happen is the estrogen will suppress the GABA. And what estrogen does is then it builds up more glutamate. Now, glutamate is that excitatory neurotransmitter. So what you'll find in your luteal phase is you've got little GABA, and because you've got little GABA, you've also got low serotonin. So you'll suffer from that kind of anxiety and that glutamate. And this is where these food sensitivities then start to come in. And this is why low serotonin, you can see there's a link to food sensitivities. So with the low GABA, the high glutamate, you start to get kind of like more wound up by certain foods that are high in glutamate, like tomatoes or MSG, soy, those kind of things. They can start to cause that anxiety, heart palpitations, and also that red flushing as well. So look out for that in your menstrual cycle, because if that's happening in the luteal phase, there's a huge likelihood that you've got low GABA, but also you've got low serotonin as well. So look out for those physical symptoms, that kind of like red flush, heart palpitations, or sensitivity to Thai food, sensitivity to Chinese food, or anything with MSG in, or tomatoes are a biggie. You know, how do they make you feel? It's particularly the heart palpitations and that kind of racing pulse as well. So we've got those symptoms. Also pain, another telltale sign of low serotonin is this exacerbated pain. And the pain is quite debilitating. It's like fibromyalgia pain. Well, it is fibromyalgia pain, but serotonin regulates our pain receptors. So if our serotonin is low, our pain perception is going to feel more. And I can only explain it like kind of, it's a dull ache, and a lot of women feel it in their neck area here, and it kind of goes up to the head. And it's that kind of real dull pain that makes you feel foggy as well. So it's not like a sharp pain. You might get a sharp pain in your hand and you're only experiencing the pain. It's more of a mental state pain. So at the same time as the pain, you're getting fatigued and you're getting foggy. Does that make sense? So the difference between pain, you know how sometimes you can have a headache and really it's just a headache. You've got the pain and it's affecting you. You might take a painkiller and the headache goes. With this, it's as though it affects your whole body, your mental and emotional well-being as well. So heaviness, fogginess, and then this pain. This is why in your luteal phase, a lot of women suffer headaches, but also flare-ups of pain, flare-ups of fibromyalgia. So they might flare up for a couple of weeks in the luteal phase along with this fogginess, and then they settle down when your period comes. You might get period pain, but you don't have this heaviness, this fogginess, and this pain in your head or in your muscles. So pain is a huge one when it comes to serotonin. And I think that's one of the biggest signs, along with the mental and emotional issues of anxiety, mind chatter, insomnia, ruminating thoughts. You might also get this initial pain in the body. And then kind of lastly, let's talk about the blood sugar levels, because with low serotonin, it's very, very common to get those sugar cravings. And this is because serotonin controls the release. It's been found in the beta cells in the pancreas, and it does support and control the release of insulin. So we produce insulin in response to glucose. So insulin, we have glucose rises, we make insulin, we release insulin, and that kind of buffers the glucose. So it keeps our blood glucose in line. Now what happens when we've got low serotonin is we don't have that buffer. So we start to get those imbalances of blood sugar, and then over time we get this insulin resistance. This can lead to diabetes. So this is why you need to get on top of it. And this is why in the luteal phase, it's not a good idea to be eating high sugary foods. And those are the foods that you want to go to. You need to be eating more kind of slow carbs, and you can cheat a little bit. So sometimes when I used to have sugar cravings in my luteal phase, I would make myself like a fatty oats and put a tiny bit of honey in. And that is so satiating. You could put some coconut cream or something, but you make the fatty oats with, you just soak them overnight in some water or in some kind of milk of choice. And then you cook them up and you add coconut cream. You might add a bit of butter to that. You might add a bit of whole cream if you eat dairy. And then you can add some seeds to it or some coconut shreds and a tiny bit of honey. So you're getting that kind of sweet, but whenever you crave sweets, you really need to follow this one rule. Don't just go for sugar. You need something rich. You need something that's going to satiate you, that's going to pull you out of that sugar craving. So when we crave sugars, the body is craving that glucose. If we just give it the glucose, we're going to continually be in this cycle of craving this glucose, craving this glucose. So what you need to do is you need to give it more. You need to give it like sustenance. Does that make sense? So then you will get out of that sugar craving. So I found there were 2 meals I used to make in the morning. And it would be 1 or 2 days of my cycle, I remember. It was either the fatty oats, or I used to make myself these buckwheat pancakes. So I just make the buckwheat pancakes with egg and a little bit of almond milk. I'd put 2 pancakes, and then I would just layer it up with coconut cream, blueberries, and like a drizzle of maple syrup. So it was just so rich. It was like filling and rich. And that would be enough to quench those sugar cravings. So that is my biggest tip to you when it comes to sugar cravings. Really give your body what it's asking for. It's asking for energy. You think it's asking for sugar, but it just wants that energy. So give it that energy in the forms of something really decadent, but that's got nutrients in, that's got slow carbs in for energy, that's got fat in for slow release energy. Don't just give it that sugar hit, because you'll find that craving will keep coming back. But the serotonin definitely craves the insulin release. So once you get those serotonin levels up, you'll find those sugar cravings, and that need to eat in that time in your cycle will slowly lessen. But make sure you eat and give yourself something decadent. That's my tip when it comes to sugar cravings, and it works. It really does work. So when you're wanting to boost your serotonin, there are lots of different ways to do it. We can do it through diet, we can do it through lifestyle. Lifestyle is one of the biggest ways to do it. Now, we do want to work on general systems in our body, so we want to make sure we've got amino acids to make serotonin. So we've got tryptophan is really important when it comes to making serotonin. We want to make sure that our gut bacteria is good, so we haven't got any gut problems, and if we've got some gut problems, we've dealt with them. We're taking the right probiotics, we've dealt with any candida issues, we've dealt with all these things, and so the gut's really healthy, so it's producing the serotonin. Then give it the amino acids, the tryptophan. You can either take a supplement of tryptophan, or you can supplement with foods. So foods, not supplement with foods, you can eat foods high in tryptophan. So we're looking at fish, chicken, eggs are one, and I'll go through a few more as well. In the masterclass, we're actually going to be talking about this. So make sure you're giving your body what it needs. It needs those foods to create the serotonin. And then you can do things on a daily basis to, that was my cat that sneezed. Then you can do things on a daily basis that boost serotonin. So choose something. So cold showers are fantastic. Cold showers boost serotonin. Exercise, so cardio boosts serotonin. Sunshine is a wonderful way to boost serotonin, so going out in the sunshine. And if you can't get in the sun, because it's coming up to winter for some of you folks, you can do vitamin D. You can either do those sun lamps as well. They're fantastic. And I love visualization and affirmations. They have been shown, there are studies that show these really help to boost serotonin, and I think they're a wonderful thing to do. So visualizations, you know, visualizing yourself, visualizing the happiness, you know, trick your brain into that kind of like happy thinking. Visualize how you want to be through your cycle or through your life each and every day. This has been shown to help serotonin. This is why, you know, you see some of these people who suddenly do courses like trying to think of courses, but they might do the Miracle Morning, or they might do Tony Robbins, and they get into all this mindset stuff. And straight away from doing this, it boosts the neurotransmitters, it boosts serotonin, it boosts dopamine. So when you get into doing these things, it can really elevate it, and it can elevate it quite quickly. So it's a good thing to do. And following through with things, if you follow through with what you say you're going to do to yourself, so if you say to yourself, I'm going to do this, and you keep following through, that's naturally going to boost serotonin. If you say to yourself, I'm going to do it, and you don't do it, that's actually going to lower serotonin. So always be careful what you actually commit to yourself. It's important. The word to yourself is really important, and that can affect your neurotransmitters. So just be aware of what you're saying to yourself, what you're committing as well to do. Just commit to what you know you can do. Visualization, sunshine, cold showers, exercise, and then of course the things that lower serotonin. So alcohol is a biggie, and I know that in the luteal phase some women just turn to alcohol, but I would say try all you can not to take alcohol when you're feeling this bad. The same with sugar. Just do the decadent dessert that's low sugar, that's lots of fat, lots of flavor, fruit. You can do that, but try not to start binging on those, on just sugar sweets, because that will lower serotonin. So alcohol, low vitamin D, and then of course the biggie at the moment is just the scrolling. The scrolling through social media has been shown to lower neurotransmitters, and I think for some people it's worse than others. So I think certain platforms can be worse. So some people looking on Instagram, for instance, seeing things like that, seeing other people's pictures, and it just makes them feel unsure and overwhelmed about themselves and about their life. So that can really have an impact on serotonin levels. I hope that helped. I tried to get through a lot there talking about serotonin, but I just want you to understand the connection it has. And there's a few simple things you can do to boost serotonin. It's really important that you do that, so you can get through, you know, your cycle, support your moods, and actually support your health at the same time, and support your hormones. So if you've got any questions about serotonin, if there's something you want to ask me, please pop it below, and I'll be on again next Wednesday at the same time. And we're going to be still focusing on neurotransmitters and mood. And if you haven't already seen, I have got a free masterclass coming up on the 26th of October. There's 2 time slots, 12 p.m. and an 8 p.m. on the 26th of October. For some of you, that will be Sunday 25th if you're over in the US. And I'm going to be talking about how to support these dreaded monthly mood swings. We're going to be talking about diet. We're going to be talking about histamine as well, neurotransmitters, what you can do to get through these moods and get through the mood swings. That's the important thing, because these mood swings can be really difficult to deal with, and they can set you back. So thank you so much. Thanks, Sue, for your comments. Thanks, Jan. And have a beautiful day, ladies. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.